Behind every amazing flavor is an amazing human who has perfected their craft. Welcome to Flavors Unknown, a behind-the-scenes look at new flavors and the chefs, pastry chefs, and bartenders who create them, with your host, Emmanuel.
Welcome to another episode of the podcast Flavors Unknown, the only place where you can listen from celebrity chefs to upcoming chefs, pastry chefs, and mixologists sharing the latest industry trend and what makes them successful. I am your host, Emmanuel Laroche. Thank you so much for listening today. If you are a first listener, I have been in the food industry for more than 20 years, both in Europe and in the US, and every other week, you will be able to hear directly from top chefs and mixologists from different regions of the US. And don't forget to subscribe to this podcast and join our community of people curious about food, drinks, and pastry. My guest last week was the award-winning bar director Beau Dubois from Puesto in San Diego. On that episode, Dubois explained how to revamp a drink menu and how to give a twist on a classic cocktail. Today, I am really pleased to have Chef Chris Shefford of Houston, Texas on the show. Chef Chris Shefford is a James Beard Award winner and was recently named by the Robb Report magazine as the best chef in the world. He has helped change the landscape of the Houston culinary scene since opening Underbelly in 2012. In 2017, he opened One Fifth, a 5-year restaurant project that changes concept every year. And in 2019, all his 3 restaurants, UB Preserved, One Fifth Mediterranean, and Georgia James, made the #1 spot on Texas' monthly list of the best new restaurant in America. Hey, hi, Chef. Thank you very much for being on the show Flavors Unknown. I'm really excited to have you today.
Oh, thanks for having me. Quite an honor.
The honor is mine because you are Houston's most recognizable chef at the moment from what we read everywhere. And you have received even recently like a major honor. You were named kind of like the Chef of the Year in one of the famous luxury lifestyle magazine in Los Angeles, like the Robb Report. So how did you react when you read this?
Yeah, I didn't see that coming, actually. I didn't even know that was happening. I got off the plane and, somebody had texted me like a picture and said, "Hey, man, congrats." And I was like, "What is that?" And like, "Robb Report." And I was like, "All right, cool." And so I was walking through the airport and I was like, "Oh, let's see if they have the Robb Report." I picked one up and I was like, wait, what? So I took it to my fiance. I was like, "Did you know about this?" She's like, "No." So it was, it's a cool surprise.
Yeah. And you were the only chef even mentioned in the magazine, correct? I mean,
Yes,
there was
sir.
Other restaurants and so on, but so that's pretty cool. I think it's of course a recognition for you, but as well for all the people that, all your team and the people working with you, correct?
Yeah. And for our entire city, it's been fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was recently in Houston and we quickly met in December. I mean, Houston is known to be one of the most diverse cities in the U.S. So how would you describe the food scene in Houston?
Well, I think it's a growing food scene. And I think what's an amazing thing about it is it's not only just like higher end restaurants, but little mom and pop shop places all across the city and everybody working together to kind of do their thing. And then it's an amazing thing for the city because you can go to, so many amazing restaurants and try so many different types of food. And with our diversity that we're talking about, you're talking about Southeast Asia, you're talking about, Central and, North, like Mexico, you're talking about Salvador, you're talking about the Middle East, India, and it's just we're not a European based city. We're more of like port and medicine and things like that. And so you drive these food cultures that, pockets of immigrants that are in all these different parts of the city cooking for their own cultures. And so you're seeing these delicious takes on different cuisines. And so it's really beautiful to be able to go out and try all of these things to learn.
And this is
really,
and this is part of your process, correct? I mean, you spend time a lot in those different, moms and pop shops, as you call them, or, small restaurants and so on. And not only discover, but learn about how those people cook and then the different key ingredients of their cuisine and their culture, correct?
Yeah, it's more of just like why, it's like, but the best way to start to have a conversation is through the food on the table. And once you can establish that, then you can establish like friendship conversations and like learning from each other, and like not just talking about food all the time, but talking about life and that's the beauty of it. It's like food takes you to these places, and you get to learn from people, and they can learn from you, and just sharing life experiences. And it's a beautiful, beautiful thing. I think that the learning process and the way that this food can be done is anywhere in this country. It is this country at this point. And so it's getting out and learning from others and teaching and just having conversations and just becoming a human. And I think it's very easy to do here in Houston, but it's very easy to do anywhere in the country. But I think here in Houston, it's very special because it's been happening for a very long time. Houstonians are so opening to learning. I think I had this conversation with somebody about this the other day when they were talking about ramen, and it's like, well, ramen isn't really a Houston thing. There are ramen shops, but Houstonians are more apt to go get pho before they will ramen because we have such a large Vietnamese culture, and it's something that we've grown up on. Ramen is relatively new to us, and so because there isn't a strong Japanese population, but Vietnamese, absolutely, Chinese, absolutely, to go have a beef shank noodle soup in a Chinese restaurant is probably, you're going to have that more often than you would a bowl of ramen, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and this is what your let's say the cookbook that you have published recently, like Cook Like a Local, can celebrate, correct? This is like the celebration of the people that you have met, and as well like some key ingredients that for you are part of the culture of what Houston is today.
Yeah, because when we talk about Cook Like a Local, most people nowadays think of that as like carrots are growing and strawberries are in season, and it's like, no. We're not talking about locality of ingredient. We're talking about locality of culture, and cook like what's around you and learn from people that are around you just to, better your life and to better your existence in the world. Like learning from people is one of the greatest things that we could possibly do. And to share stories and to have conversations, it's the easiest thing to do.
And I thought it was interesting. I have your book, and looking at it and being broken in those chapters that are dedicated to like unique ingredients. So what was the rationale of the selection of those 6 ingredients that you have, in the book, like fish sauce and chiles and so on?
It's the ingredients that kind of transpire the world. You can take that anywhere. Like I was standing in, you start talking about herbs and chilies and spices and fish sauce and rice and all of these ingredients that really kind of go around the globe. But like I was in predominantly Mexican kitchen the other day. Look, staying in the cooler I was working out of that restaurant for an event. I was like, man, chilies, cilantro, mint, this, that. I was like, all I need is fish sauce and I can go anywhere. And it's really a beautiful thing. And that's like, once you can tie these ingredients together, they really do circle the globe.
And fish sauce is not an easy one. I know for me it was a kind of a acquired taste. That's not something that you can easily enjoy. So it grew up on you.
It does, and it's this simple. There's some recipes in there that kind of teach you to manipulate it just a little bit to be able to like not know that it's there, but to understand that it's there. And that was the key thing. Is like if you can take a bunch of herbs and a bunch of chilies and some sugar, a sweetness base like honey or what have you, and some garlic and some citrus, and then add fish sauce to that and puree that and then marinate that into beef or chicken or poultry or fish or what have you. Once you cook that, the fish sauce doesn't really step into the forefront, but it's there. And it's, once you can start to understand why it's there and it gives you that rich umami kind of salty characteristic that you're looking for, it starts to grow on. The first time I had fish sauce at a Vietnamese restaurant, I was like, I'll take the peanut sauce, man. Thank you so much. I don't need that. And then all of a sudden, later on, I started like, it's not that I discovered it. It's been there forever. It's that I started to appreciate it.
So you have a chapter called spices. So what kind of spices do you focus on this chapter?
We just focus on dry spice and really learning like the dry spice cultures and, learning more about how to use star anise and cinnamon and spices like that you don't normally see.
Your book is telling a unique story. So how is it how would you describe the people listening to, to the podcast? How is your book different from other, cookbooks out there?
It's basically, it's a love letter to Houston, but it's not just that. It's a love letter to our country. It's a love letter to where we're going. And it's a love letter to accepting and to start to learn and understand like where we're going as people. We have so many cultures in every city that, it's like appreciate where you're at, appreciate the things that you have, and appreciate the people that are around you, and start to learn how to exist together. And the easiest way, like I said, to do that is through food. It really is. Everybody like, you know what? I'm going to go try an Indian restaurant. And then all of a sudden you find an Indian restaurant that you like. And all of a sudden you keep going back there. You keep going back there and keep going back there. And if you're a cook, you become very inquisitive. And it's like, well, how do you do this? Just walk me through the steps of this. How do you I've had so many times where, I reference in the book so many different families that I've learned from throughout time here in Houston. The Patels, Auntie Patel, all the time. She's like, quit cooking like an American. I'm like, okay. She's like, you need to cook like me. You need to cook like this, where it's like, I sat around, we did a dinner together and I made a dish. I was like, here, taste this. And she looked at me. She's like, son, give me your spice rack. And I was like, oh God, here we go. And to me, I was like, man, I'm cooking for 100 people. This is very bold and flavorful as it is. And like, where are we going? And like all of the cooks just kind of like head in the pot, looking at what she's doing. She's just handfuls of things. And I'm like, oh my God, no, I don't know. I'm going to have to start over. And she's like, she just stirs it. She's like, taste it. And I tasted it. And I was like, this is beautiful. And once you can realize like you need to quit cooking for yourself and start cooking for the culture, you can cook free at that point.
Your mindset is very specific. I mean, I've spoken with a lot of chefs through the different recording on the podcast, which is always very exciting and meeting new people. But you really love people, and you really believe this like true collaboration, which is part of your approach to food. That seems to be very, very essential for you.
We're all here together. We're all here together. We're all breathing the same air. We're all doing the same things, so it's,
yeah, but at the end of the day, there's business as well. So, yep. People sometimes are more focused on that aspect.
Yeah. I mean, but it's like, if we can if in a city that I live in where there's 4 million plus people, and you talk about Houston specifically, and it's always ranked as like one of the highest per capita eating out cities in the country, right? People are always eating out here. And I want everybody to have a little bit of that. We're all hustling together. We're all doing the same things. We're all running restaurants. We're all cooking for food for people. Let's all go everywhere. I don't ever want to see anybody not succeed. So if we can do it all together, that's the whole all the boats rise with the tide theory. If we can do that, then it just makes Houston a better food city, and people start to travel here more and more and more and more for food. And you get, and then the cooks start traveling here to start cooking in Houston, and it becomes a food destination. Isn't that better for everyone?
Let's go back a little bit in time. So what compelled you to become a chef?
I was a dishwasher in a sushi bar in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I didn't want to go to business school. I didn't want to be an accountant. I didn't want to be a lawyer. None of that seemed like entertaining to me. And I can't paint, so I couldn't be the artist part of the deal. And I just like cooking for friends. And then, I took a job as a dishwasher, and I just started. Then all of a sudden, like, I'm working at the tempura station. I'm working the grill. I'm working saute, and like, finally, my boss was like, you need to go to culinary school. And I was like, what is that? And this is like 93. It's like, it's a place they teach you to cook. And I was like, oh, it's college. And he's like, yeah. I was like, okay, cool. And so I started looking that up. I moved to Houston to go to culinary school, and I always said that I would go back to Tulsa. And then I saw like how much I could learn here, and I just never went back.
And which is interesting is that it seems that you have a very unconventional approach to like the restaurant business. If looking at everything that you have done in the past, that you opened a restaurant like Underbelly in 2012, and then you closed it in 18, even if the business was in fact really good. So what was the rationale behind that decision?
It was, we had Hey Merchant and Underbelly, which were two restaurants that were combined. I mean, there's Underbelly on one side of the 10,000 square feet, then Hay Merchant on the other side. So 2 different kitchens, 2 different restaurants running at the same time. And then I had a unique lease opportunity that came up right down the street. And, I was always said that, like, if I could do another restaurant but keep it close, then that would make sense, where I could go back and forth. And so this opportunity came up called 1/5, which was a 5-year lease. And I would change the concept every year.
Yeah, that's another unconventional approach to the restaurant business. So how did you come up with this? What was the reason for this? One morning you woke up and you said, this is what I have to do?
No, I literally was sitting in the meeting and they were talking to me about, like, the people that own the property of where the restaurant's at. They said, well, it's a beautiful restaurant, but we're not really sure what we want to do for it long term. So I just need someone to go in this restaurant for a couple of years. I said, well, I'll do it for 5, but this is how I'm going to do it. And because I'm trying to figure out what's next, and it's like.
So it's an opportunity for you to test different concepts and see what's stick.
That's exactly it. Because, you most of the time you open a restaurant, you put, a couple $1 million into it. And then, like, does it work? You hope. Do people like it? Am I cooking things right? Are the costs in line? Or, like, is it smart business plan? All of that. I looked at this as like, hey, it's a 5-year thing where if it works, it works. If not, okay, I'm still going to figure it out. Where we could take each year and figure out what, if we were going to do a restaurant, like we have to think about, like, what would a restaurant that we really want to do, what would that be? And then we try it for a year.
But I mean, it's a lot of logistics, because so it's a year. So that's mean that you'd have at least to take like probably a month as well to switch, from one concept to another. So
yeah.
So you have one concept open like for like 11 months and then something like this. And then
yep.
It's a lot because from what I've seen, you change like everything. Of course, the menu, but like the wine,
the decor,
like the decor, like it's a lot of undertaking.
It is, and I have a really good team. Like that's the, what do we want to do when we grow up type thing. And so the first year we did was the steakhouse. And then the second year was Romance languages. So a focus on French, Italian, and Spanish. And then year 3 was Eastern Mediterranean. 4 right now is Gulf Coast. And year 5, I have no idea.
Yeah. Okay. So it's not like something that you have planned in advance and so on. It's like it comes, from one year to another or?
Yeah. I mean, it would be like, because we all have the questions, like we look at each other like, what are we going to do? And it's like, what do you really want to do? And, the thing is, like, if you're not passionate about it, like, then don't do it. That's the thing. It's like, I don't want to do a restaurant. I don't want to do something for 11 months. It's going to be like, you know what? We could do this and maybe it'll work out. No, I want to do it to see if it does work out. I want to do it to see if we really want to do this, if we want to have fun like this, if we're going to do this again in the future. Like, that's what this concept is. And so basically, long story short, it was like me working part of the service at Underbelly and then running down the street and then working at 1/5 and then coming back and then going forth and then going back and forth every night. And it was a lot.
So that was the reason for you to say like that you have seen on the 1/5 the first year that the steakhouse was very, very popular and successful. And that's why you decided to take that concept and take it, Georgia James, like the steakhouse after and keep it alive.
Pretty much. Yep. I sat one night and I said, you know what? I want to close Underbelly and I want to put, because we were looking for a 200-seat or 180-seat steakhouse property. And I was like, well, we already have one. And everybody's like, what? I was like, we just closed Underbelly. And then we gut it and redo that. And everybody's like, you're crazy. Like, that doesn't make any sense. And I was like, it does to me personally. Because if we're going to grow as a company, like, Underbelly is always going to be the place where it's whole animal, it's local produce, it's, there's no produce company, there's no vendors, it's just whatever our local people drop off. And so the menu changes every day, and it has to be focused on our city. And like, if I'm not there, it's a lot for people to have to harness, if that makes sense. Like the sous chefs and what have you, like as much fun as that is, like, but I like that fun too. And if I'm not there, then I'm taking that away from myself. Anyway, we just put the steakhouse there. And then the conversation was like, but what about what happens with Underbelly? Like, I was like, well, it's a philosophy. It's a way of life. It's not a restaurant anymore. All of a sudden, then this little restaurant closes in between 1/5 and Underbelly. That's like 78-seat place. And I always wanted, when Underbelly first was a thought, I was like, I always wanted it to be a smaller place. I signed a lease on that. We put UB Preserve. So we're preserving Underbelly. So the timeline as it goes was we closed Underbelly on April 1st. We opened up UB Preserve May 12th. We closed 1/5 Romance Languages on the 31st of July. Opened up 1/5 Mediterranean on September 1st. Did Southern Smoke on September 30th. And then opened up Georgia James on October 15th.
And that's all like 18, correct? 2018,
yeah,
correct?
Yeah, all that within 6 months.
Heck of a year for you.
Yeah, it was a lot. Thank gosh, Everything was really close together. So, and thank gosh, we had a really good team.
And are you going to potentially take like the other tests that you have done with 1/5 into other concept restaurants in the future, like the Romance Language? And
you know what, Romance Language was. You know what, people spend their entire lives doing French cuisine or doing Italian cuisine and doing Spanish cuisine. And you know what, to do all three of those together was an interesting concept, but it's not something I really want to do again. And I think that for timing, like if we did that concept again, it would have a totally different mind feel and set, because when we opened up that, it was legitimately 2 weeks after Harvey pretty much destroyed our city. And so it was a hard year for that.
And this is like the background, correct? The French cuisine, you have been classically French trained, correct? And then you have done like the Spanish aspect as well at the beginning of your career.
Yeah, and then I didn't know anything about making pasta. So that was I want to make pasta. And you know what? I don't want to make pasta. I'm much more of a rice person.
But, are you still excited with, that type of cuisine, the French and the Spanish cuisine? All the other things that you have discovered along the way, I would say, with all the people that you have met in Houston?
Yeah. I mean, I love all three of those foods or all three of those concepts, but I think combined, it's a little bit more difficult. But the Eastern Mediterranean, I think we will do that one again. We just loved it. The staff loved it. Like everybody involved loved it. The city loved it. So it was really good. And then Gulf Coast, it's kind of it is who we are. It's a city. So I think we're still working through that.
And that's local in terms of ingredients this time, correct? So you have no idea what 2021 will be on 1/5?
Nope.
Not a clue. So when are you going to make the decision?
Next couple months.
Okay.
It's going to be one of those things like, what do you really want to do? I have to talk to the chef, I have to talk to Matt's staff. Like, what do you really want to do?
Sure. So you have to sit down with them and you have to create like the recipes and everything.
Yeah, we have a lot of work to do. And then design and then layout. And, yeah.
How long does it take to when you know what you want to do, when you made that decision to wrap everything up to find like the menu and the recipe and test the recipes and, the decor and so on? It's only a month?
Yeah, well, we flipped Gulf Coast in 12 days. Yeah. We closed.
You're crazy. Sorry.
Yeah, everybody thinks that. We closed 1/5 Mediterranean on July 31st and opened up 1/5 Romance or 1/5 Gulf Coast on August 12th. Like I said, this is a learning experience and you learn a lot of things. What you learn is that it's financially not viable to close a restaurant for a month and still put everybody on payroll and pay rent and do all the testing. So it's we need to get that stuff done ahead of time. And because it's hard for staff to understand, they don't have a job for a month, but they have to save for that. We have to, make sure we're paying things. And it's ridiculously expensive to do. So that was this year we tried. It was 12 days. Come in, paint, shut it down, get everything done, hammer through. And, and so at the same time, when we made the decision on the change, because originally I was you know what? I said that if we did 1/5 and we had two concepts out of it that we were successful and that we loved, that would be it. That would be the winner. And the steakhouse and the Mediterranean concepts are both ones that I feel are good. And we weren't going to change. And then finally I came in June and it was we're changing to Gulf Coast. And everybody's what? And it was they said for 3 months you said we weren't changing. I was let's change it. So.
Oh my gosh. So, I mean, I understand that at your level that, this is your pace and so on, but how do you motivate your team and the people behind you to support you and go for it?
People love challenges. I think status quo is one of the worst things for people is trying to just sit there and do the same things over and over and over again. And that's not what we build. We don't build a company that the menus don't change and the food is always the same. And like, that's not me. That's just like, within the first 2 or 3 weeks, I'm like, okay, what are we changing? Let's go. Okay, that sells a lot. Okay, let's change it. Let's do something else, and it's like, that's who I am. And so it's always wanting something different, flavor profiles. And if we're just going to sit on our laurels, we're not going to learn anything personally. So let's work on new things and let's push the boundaries of what we think can be done. Maybe it's simple to somebody else, but for us, it's a new challenge. And so that's the goal, is like, how do you do this? Like, how do you make jambalaya to order? And it was like, that's not possible. I was like, the hell it's not. And we're going to do it. And nobody could understand just this concept. And I was like, look, jambalaya is one of those dishes that I truly love, but it's only good if you're at home and you're making. Because most of the time it's on a steam table, it's overcooked, it's tomatoey, it's not delicious. It is what it is. But how do we perfect this? And I think that we've done it. And so, every night it's like 35 giant pans.
So what's the secret?
That's the secret. It's just like having everything lined up and being ready to go. It's really all about mise en place. And then it's like just putting it together and it works really well. I mean, probably too good, actually.
Do you think you would be able to take that, your philosophy and your approach to business in other parts of the country? Like, or is it, because of the scale of what Houston is, but is it something that could be done in LA or in New York, for instance?
I mean, if somebody's crazy, yeah, go ahead. I mean, I'm not saying I'm the perfect business plan by any means. It's, I think that if you have people around you that are willing to push and willing to learn and willing to do something new, I think that that's the benefit of, having good staff. And like, you're always going to have your challenges, but it's like, hey guys, team, this is what I'm thinking. And they're all like, I get the look a lot. Like, what? And then, all right, let's go, because everybody's down.
I would like to talk a little bit about how you approach your creative process. So how would you describe it? How do you start? Where's the inspiration come from?
I think that, it's inspiration comes from, I tell people all the time that the only thing that holds you back is yourself. Right. And that's the honest truth. Like, the only thing that you can say no to is yourself. Like, it's just, you have to try and push and trying to learn. And you'll find inspirations anywhere and everywhere. You could just be sitting there watching somebody and be inspired by movements that they make, textures in a dish, or going out. I'm not saying like I can go out to a restaurant and be like, ooh, this is perfect. No, it's the scenario of beauty. Western African cuisine right now is probably the fastest growing culture in the city per capita, right? It's just, you're starting over the past 3 years, the Western African.
Yogo, that's your next concept for 1/5.
I got to learn it first.
Good.
And I think it goes back to like the day, like we talked about earlier about having fish sauce for the first time. Myself and the chef from Preserve, Nick Wong, went to a place called Taste of Nigeria one night. I was like, let's go have Nigerian cuisine. And he's like, all right, let's go. And we sat down, and like our waitress, she was so nice and so knowledgeable about the food. And I was like, how long have you been here? And she's like, a month. And I was like, wow. All right. So let's talk about food. And, we started working through it. She's like, let me pick these dishes for you. I said, you know what? We just want to learn. I don't care. You give us everything on the menu if you wanted to. She's like, I'm not going to give you things that are too similar. I'm like, okay, fine. And so we went through the menu, and what I realized is that, and it was such a beautiful experience, is that, was the goat cooked long enough? Was the beef cooked long enough to my taste? No, it wasn't. It was super al dente and kind of tough and gnarly and chewy, but the flavors were very profound, and textures like fufu, where it's just like, pounded yams. Were the textures for me? No. And it didn't matter. The place was just like people picking up food to go left and right, people coming in and sitting and down and eating left and right. And it was a beautiful moment for me that inspired me and Nick, is that they weren't cooking for me. It was cooking for the culture and learning from the culture. And it was like, and as I got up to go wash my hands, a lady at the table grabbed my arm. She said, can I ask you a question, sir? And I said, yeah, no problem. What's up? And she's like, did you live in Nigeria? I was like, I did not. I've never had this food before. And she was like, you went at that fufu like nobody's business. And I was like, I did what she told me to do. And she was like, well done. Well done. She's like, I'm super impressed that you're here. And I was like, I want to learn it. When you can start to see things like that, you know what? And it takes me back to that fish sauce moment. The first time I had it, I didn't care for it. But the more I tried it, it's not that I did not care for it anymore. It's just I respected it. And it intrigued me more and it inspired me more. And so I think when you can start to talk about that, that's where you used to find these little touches of inspiration when you can be inspired to learn from.
But let's talk the fish sauce, for instance, that, it grew up on you. And then what's the next step then for you? How are you going to appropriate that, make it yourself and then yours and put it into your own spin, or include this into like different types of dishes?
Fish sauce, for example, not all fish sauces are created equal. You have to go down the deep hole. I think, especially I found out in the book that there's one thing that a human being should never do, and that's a fish sauce tasting backed up by a soy sauce tasting. If you sit back and taste 6 different fish sauce, then sit back and taste 6 different soy sauce, there's so much sodium in your body. It's amazing. But, trying fish sauce side by side, you can really see, like, you start to look at ingredients, you start to look at levels of sodium, you start to look at like what these things are. And with fish sauce, what I learned is like there should be 2 ingredients. There should be anchovies and there should be salt. And that's it. And so like cheap fish sauce is not worth the time, right? Because for you and I, like in a home consumer to use fish sauce, make sure you're buying quality, right? And that's pretty easy to do at this point. And then it's like, how do you balance? And it's learning the balance between, you have something that's so super funky that you need something sweet, that you need something spicy, that you need something to tone it back. You need some acidic, and it's just learning balance. And I think fish sauce is the perfect thing to inspire you to learn balance in a dish, right? Because most cooks cook with salt, pepper, and maybe a little bit of lemon juice or lime juice or something on a dish to finish it with. But it's more about understanding balance of sweetness, sour, the spice, the funk. And I think fish sauce is a perfect ingredient for young cooks, especially, to understand their palate and to understand balance in flavors.
So how would you marry it into because of course you use it a lot of in Vietnamese cuisine and so on, and banh mi and so on, but like in other more mainstream American, I would say like chicken or shrimp and so on. So how would you suggest to use it?
It's perfect in brines. If you're going to brine a chicken, I think for using a little bit of fish sauce into it gives it that you'll never know it's there spice or flavor profile. I think it's perfect in like bolognese. You add a little bit into your bolognese and it just gives it that umami richness. I mean, it's not something you use you don't have to, if you're not looking to do predominantly a Vietnamese or Thai influenced flavor, that you're adding just a little bit of sodium but not that. It's more of that richness of fermentation and that richness of umami, that flavor contrast that you can't find, that you can't buy, that it's there. And you have to use these ingredients. And I think fish sauce is an absolutely perfect way to put those things in there. A little bit in the vinaigrette, a little bit in the braising liquid, a little bit in like bolognese, a little bit into, it's really just like a little dab will do you. But it brings so much to the party.
What is more important for you? Is it like having like the right technique or the creativity aspect?
I think creativity is probably the most important thing. It's about just seeing things and using things and touching things. And technique is cool, right? But at the end of the day, it's got to taste good, right? You can make something very, very beautiful. But if it doesn't taste good, it doesn't taste good. So it's going back to like touch and flavor. And like I said, understanding fish sauces for younger cooks is understanding balance. You can understand balance, then that's where, delicious food can come from.
What's your latest ingredient obsession? Don't say fish sauce. We know that.
No, it's not. It's not. I think like I'm learning more about like Middle Eastern flavors, and that's Middle Eastern and like Eastern Mediterranean. I think that tahini has become an obsession with me. and perfecting hummus right is pretty amazing to me. But I think tahini, Ceylon, like date molasses and learning about these textures and flavors of how to incorporate, like when you're grilling a piece of spicy meat and you're brushing it with date molasses, like what does that do? And I think that those kind of flavors are very bright and beautiful to me. And I tell you what, since we closed 1/5 Mediterranean, I completely miss it. And we just built a house and moved in, and I'm about to put a kebab grill outside because I am missing it.
What are you the most proud of looking back at your career?
The people that have come through that are still here with us. And I think that having a good crew and having people that you can inspire and they want to learn. I think over the 20 years I've been doing this, I've been blessed to have a lot of people work with me and go out and branch their own wings and to be who they can be. And I think that, when you see, I call them my kids, but when you see your kids grow and become amazing and be who they're supposed to be, I think that's the most beneficial thing for me.
So being a mentor is something very important to you, correct?
Yeah, I've got, some here in Houston. I've got some across the States, but, it's the people that have latched on to like what you think. And, it's cool to walk into their kitchens now and be like, oh my gosh, they run their kitchens the same way. Like, this is so awesome. It's like they treat their staff with respect. They treat them with love. They treat them with wanting to learn and the knowledge. And it's really beautiful to see.
I always ask my guests on the show to take like kind of a mainstream food that a home cook would do, and then I ask them, how would you twist it like your way? So for you, I thought that maybe we could take like chicken wings, and thinking about like a home food, like foodies at home, how would they tweak it with a unique spin with a kind of like Chef Chris Shepherd signature?
Caramelized fish sauce chicken wings. It's the greatest thing ever.
Okay.
I mean, I beat that to a pulp, but like that's to me one of the greatest ever. Roast your chicken wings in the oven, right? Because I mean, how many times are you going to fry them at your house? You're probably gonna, because like, hooking a fryer up is a pain, or grill them, but then but then have a hot little saute pan, toast a little bit of garlic, shaved garlic, add some honey or like white sugar, caramelize that, fish sauce, lime juice, toss the wings in that. You're good. A little bit of chilies in there too.
What kind of chilies? Because chilies there's a lot. So what would you put?
I mean, you're gonna have I always say jalapeno serrano because those are two that are everywhere.
Okay,
you can find that pretty much anywhere. So or just sambal works too. But yeah, that's my wing of choice.
So you have a non-profit organization, correct, called Southern Smoke. So what's the mission?
Smoke, yeah.
What's the mission of that organization?
So 5 years ago, maybe 6 years ago now, we were doing dinners at the restaurant because Underbelly and now still at UB Preserve, on the walls there's a big picture frame and it holds, at Underbelly it was 50 photos. And those are people like you would walk in the restaurant, but these were 50 photos that were people from around the city, different restaurants that I feel that inspire and make our city better, whether it be through pho or whether it be through Korean barbecue or whether it be through like a different restaurant or an artist or what have you. But it's all things that were inspiring to me in Houston. And we would pull some of those people off the wall. We'd pull like a British chef that had a British focused restaurant and then a British curry house. And I would do it, and then we would all do a dinner together. Like they would each do a course, and then we would do a course that was inspired by them. And I would have one of my old Psalms friends, a guest Psalm, come in and do the wine pairings for the night because it was we did them on Sundays, and I wanted my GM/Psalm to have that night off with his family. Anyway, we did this to raise money for culinary scholarships, and we raised enough money to send somebody through culinary school. The next year, my Psalm that would come in, and Antonio Gianola, who would come in and to the guest Psalm, he asked me, he was like, hey, you doing those dinners again? I said, I don't know. What's up? He's like, if you do, can we do one to raise money for MS? I was like, yeah, why? What's the cause? I mean, what's the reason? He was like, well, I was diagnosed with MS. And I was like, you know what? We're going to throw a party. And he was like, all right, well, I was like, but we got to figure this out. Give me some time. So I called up, Lindsay and I were talking about it. I called up Aaron Franklin and Sean Brock and Rodney Scott. And I was like, look, you guys do South Carolina cuisine. We'll do Texas cuisine. We'll do this thing out in the back, parking lot for like 200-300 people. And it'll be awesome. We'll raise some money. And everybody's like, yes, of course. I go to talk to the Department of Special Events at the mayor's department because I just wanted to block off the sidewalks because I didn't want anybody to get mad. She looked at me. She's like, what are you doing? I told her, she's like, all right, here's what's happening. I'm closing off all of the streets around you. We're pulling all street closures. Here's the stage. You guys can now have live music. So here's all of the people to basically like help you with things. Lighting, people to put up fencing, all of the infrastructure. I was like, okay. And we walk out and I look at Lindsay. I was like, what just happened? She's like, I think we have a festival now. And I was like, oh, good Lord. What do we know about festivals? Like, we don't know anything about this. And she's like, I know, we'll figure it out. We're getting down. And I told all the chefs, I was like, hey, you remember that 200 people? Man, it's going to be like 1,000. Everybody's like, yeah, no problem. We got you. And I was like, okay, cool. So the whole goal was, I said, we're going to raise $100,000 for the MS Society. And everybody said, don't do that. Don't say that. I said, we're too late. I already did. And at the end of the day, finally like a month out, I was like, hey, Lindsay, maybe we should tell the MS Society that we're doing this. And they laughed when we told them, because I'm sure they get told that people are raising money for parties for them all the time, and then it doesn't come to fruition. And I don't doubt that, I know it happens. And so they came out, they helped us out. The same people that laughed cried when I wrote them a check for $181,000. And year 2 comes around, we do it again. We raised $284,000 that year. Year 3, we're about a month out. Harvey comes in, puts a real hurt to our city. And I looked at our crew and I said, look, we can't do this for MS this year. We have to put that on hold. We need to find a way to take care of our industry. We need to find a way to take care of anybody in our industry that is suffering, that is lost things, that, because restaurants are affected. Like, yeah, your house is destroyed and then your restaurant's slow. How do you make money? How do you take care of things? And so we figured out a way that we could put up an application system in Spanish, Vietnamese, and English where anybody in the city, and I said, I don't care if you work in a drive-through, if you deliver the milk, if you stock the groceries, if you farm things, like whatever, I don't care. I want people to be able to basically put in an application, and if they come in times of hardship, that we can cut them a check. And we did 139 checks for $501,000
wow.
that year.
Congratulations.
So then at that point, we realized that there is a huge need in our industry for folks in times of crisis, that they have somewhere to go. And so the Southern Smoke Hospitality Relief Fund is now in effect. We now split money between MS and for our hospitality fund, so that every year at the festival, we cut the MS Foundation a check, but then we do a year-round organization for people in our industry, not just here in Houston, but anywhere, that come in times of crisis. Whether you have a dark night, whether you trip and twist your ankle but can't pay your doctor because you got to work, or however it may be. But, in 5 years, we're just a bunch of cooks and restaurant people, but in 5 years, we've donated back $1.6 million.
Okay. Wow. And do you organize still those, I would say, festivals or like block parties with other chefs and so on?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. It happens every year in the fall. And, we get chefs in from all over the country. And this past year, we had 26 chefs. We raised the most amount of money we've ever done. We did $576,000 that day. So it's every year we grow, but every day we fight to do better.
Mm-hmm. So you say it's in the fall. So what month is it? Or it changes every?
It changes. Traditionally we always looked at the Texan schedule to see because I have to go to the games. So we would always do the bye week, but I think we're planning on October 4th this year. We can't wait for the schedule to come out. So I think we're just going to call it a day and do it on October 4th.
Okay, Chef, it's almost like, not an hour, but close. We are getting close. So I have to be respectful of your time. So I would like to finish the interview with a quick series of rapid fire questions, if it's okay with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you and I, we are going on a Flavors Unknown tasting trek in Houston. So which are the 5 places you are going to take me to?
Restaurant-wise?
It could be a restaurant, it could be bar, it could be, food related.
So we're going to go to Cali Sandwich, banh mi. It's the best banh mi in the city. And for $3.25, you're not going to beat a better deal. It's the best sandwich out there. We're going to go to Saigon Pagalak, because that way when people come into town, they say, you know what, I want to try Vietnamese food. People just generally have the common thought of it's going to be pho or banh mi. We already did banh mi, but now we're going to go try traditional family style Vietnamese. Let's see, where else would we go? Hai Cang, Cantonese style seafood house. Just delicious. Definitely going to go, but we're not going to our places, right?
I don't know. I mean, I would be good to something.
I can't pick my own places. That's just really weird. Cultivari, because I think what they do over there is just absolutely fantastic. Pastas and pizzas and really like garden cuisine from their gardens. And it's so good. The pickled butternut squash salad, just epic. We're going to go to Tacos Tierra Caliente, because I think for a taco truck, it's probably one of the best tacos out there. And then probably HK Dim Sum, because I think dim sum made to order is absolutely fantastic. But if it's a Saturday or Sunday, we're going to go to El Hill del Guince, where they do spit roasted goats in the dining room.
Oh, I love goat. So, yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, goat cooked over open fire and then lamb barbacoa. Ah, it's so good.
Very good.
Yeah.
So what's your favorite guilty pleasure food?
General Tso's chicken.
Okay.
I love it. Yeah, it's crazy. And a really good egg roll. God, I love that. American Chinese food is probably one of my favorite things on the face.
Can you give me 3 dishes that you could not live without cooking or eating?
Gumbo, probably a banh mi, and I just love a roasted chicken. I mean, the simple roasted chicken, but anything that has to do with like a rice dish with it would probably be it.
So what is the one thing that annoys you the most in the industry?
The amount of poke shops.
Okay.
I think it's there's no reason anybody should be able to get really good quality a large amount of quality fish for $7. It's disgusting. And grocery store sushi, but that's just me.
Okay. Yeah. I just came back from Japan not too long ago with my youngest son, and I cannot eat like another grocery sushi piece anymore.
Yeah, I think I walk through and I just see people grabbing all the mayonnaise laced rolls, and I'm like, oh my God, why are you doing that to yourself? I know it's $4, but please stop.
Yeah. Yeah, buy something else affordable. You're right.
Yeah.
What's your pet peeves in the kitchen?
Man, I got a lot of them. Excessive use of rosemary, tidiness, being untidy is a huge thing. I think not organized, not cooking clean with thoughts.
I mean, with you, they better be organized because, I'll
change it on you in a heartbeat.
Things, yeah, that you are putting in place, they better be. Okay, so I mean, that's it on my end. So I mean, thank you so much for being a guest on the show. I really love having the discussion with you. I hope I'm going to go up to Houston in 2020. I would love to spend more time and continue the conversation. It was very nice.
Yeah, I would love that.
Thank you so much for listening to my podcast, Flavors Unknown. I do know that there are hundreds of thousands of podcasts out there, and I'm deeply honored that you have decided to listen to mine. If you like this episode, you can find the show notes at flavorsunknown.com, and you will access all the links and everything mentioned in this episode. Please subscribe to the podcast and share it with a foodie friend or a colleague. And one more thing, please rate and review the podcast on your phone app. In 2 weeks, do not miss the episode with Chef Mark Welker on my podcast Flavors Unknown. He is the executive pastry chef at 11 Madison Park and the restaurants Nomad in New York, LA, Las Vegas, and London. If you want to ask questions to Chef Mark Welker, please send them to me at the following email address: contact@flavorsunknown.com. And I will include some of them in my conversation with him. I see you in 2 weeks, and until then, remember that people who love to eat are always the best people.
Thanks for listening to Flavors Unknown. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to leave a review. Find the show notes at flavorsunknown.com. And if you want to join the Flavors Unknown community, search Flavors Unknown on Instagram and Twitter.